Welcome to all the students once again. We have started the topic elements of soft skill, in which we have first completed the first element, that is manners, etiquettes and grooming, and started the second element, that is effective listening and speaking, which was divided into two parts, part 1 and part 2. So today we will start with the part 2, and we'll first start with the subtopics of the effective listening which were left in the previous lecture. So let us start with first the principles of good listening. Okay. So first principle is attention. See, whenever the speaker is speaking something, the first and the foremost important thing is to attend or to listen it attentively. If you pay the attention, then you can understand what the particular speaker is speaking. The first principle of the good listening is what? You're paying attention. The next principle is be curious. See, effective listening requires you to be curious about how other people see the world. Seek to understand all you can, ask open questions, and try to see the world through the other person's perpetual lens. So be curious whenever you are listening to particular speaker. Next is listen the whole message, which we generally don't do. Okay. Make sure you hear and understand the whole message before you respond. A common bad habit is to only hear what you expect to hear and then begin rehearsing your response ready to pitch in as soon as the dialogue has stepped or has stopped. So first and the foremost thing is that please listen the whole message carefully and then respond to what the particular speaker has said. The next principle is understanding. See, understanding is very important whenever the speaker is saying something. This is not as simple as it sounds due to the fact that phrases have many meanings and people may understand the equal phrases differently. So understanding is very important for a good listening. Next is speedy process. Listening is a speedy process. A listener has to match with the speed of the speaker's speed. If the speed of both the persons involved in the process matches, then the possibility of increasing the comprehension level also increases. So, listening is a speedy process. The next principle is feel empathy. Okay. This is particularly important when people communicate something personal or painful. Empathy is more than feeling sorry for someone. It requires you to first understand and feel others' emotions and feelings so that you can then acknowledge the message and share your understanding with the person. Okay? The next is barriers-free conditions. There are barriers to listening, which includes listening ability, comprehension, distractions, burden, instant reaction, early judgment, lack of attention, etc. So these barriers are to be avoided to become a good listener. The next principle is active process. Listening is a lively process. Listening is a manner of alertness and concentration which is visible through posture and expressions. It may also be checked with the questions raised and feedback given by the listeners. So, your listening is an active process. Next is complexity. Listening is a complex task. It entails many mental and bodily boundaries. It is better to bring total perfection in the listening, especially in the meetings and the conferences. The last principle is listen with respect. Respecting the right to differ is a key concept that is especially important when you are listening. Differences may lie in the opinions or the thoughts expressed or in the communication style that is being used. Remember that even when you are not communicating verbally, your own non-verbal cues speak for you. So, listen to understand, not to judge. So these were the principles of your good listening. Now let us move on to the types of listeners. In this, first we will see the projective listener. See, these kind of listener projects himself within the speaker's point of view. And merely acceptance of the speaker's point of view is not the thing here. Projective listener positively tries to apprehend the perspectives and opinions of the speaker. So what he does, he tries to apprehend the meaning or the opinions or the perspective of the speaker, and with that reference, he listens the speaker's point of view. So this is what a projective listener means. The next type is fake listener. As the word itself says, what does the fake means? Jhootha, ठीक है? Fake listener pretends that he or she is listening sincerely. He or she fools the speaker by keeping and maintaining eye contact with the speaker. This type of listener pretends that he or she is listening with full concentration, but that is not the case. A fake listener's mind is concerned with different topics. In other words, he or she is physically present but mentally absent. So this is what your fake listener here means. The next comes sympathetic listener. A sympathetic listener gives time and endurance to listen to the speaker. He sincerely listens to it, what the speaker is saying. Okay. He or she listens attentively and he respects the speaker of what does he speaks or what does he or she speaks. The sympathetic listener or a manager listens to a worker grievances attentively. So this is what a sympathetic listener is. Next type is emphatic listener. An emphatic listener pays interest not most effectively to the surface meaning of the phrases, however, attempts to probe the feelings of the speaker. Such listening is called listening with third ear. In emphatic listening, the speaker is encouraged with the words like I see, go on, and many others. The listener tries to get maximum facts from the speaker without interrupting. Okay. The next type is prejudiced listener. See, prejudiced listener forms an opinion in advance whether the topic is relevant or not, useful or not. He or she also believes that a subject or message is hard to apprehend. Therefore, he or she does not show interest in the speaker. Sometimes, based on the appearance of the speaker, the listener thinks that he or she may not have anything to speak. So, prejudice and bias are major limitation to proper listening. In the simple word, prejudiced means that the particular person has formed the opinion in advance about something and he doesn't want to change it. So, this is what this word means here. Okay. Next comes marginal listener. See, this type of listening exists when there is the provision of too much information. This can be an overloading of the information. In this, listener knows the subject of communication, but very briefly that means details are totally ignored. See, if the message is given too much, if the information is too much, then what does the listener does that what is important to him or her, he or she listens that only. You can have a simple example of a classroom. The topics which are interested to the students, they will listen it carefully, and those which are not interested, they will not listen it. So this is what marginal listener means. The things which are important to them, or if the information is too much, then they will listen only those information which are important to them, and which are not, they will not listen to it. So this is what a marginal listener means. So these were the 6 types of listener: projective listener, fake listener, sympathetic listener, emphatic listener, prejudiced listener, and marginal listener. So in this or here we have completed the effective listening. Now let us move on to the effective speaking. In this, first we will see the meaning of effective speaking. See, to communicate effective and clearly is an important skill. The speaker have to make the message clear and easily understandable. The sound of a voice and the content of the speech offers clues to one's emotional status, and a dialect can suggest their geographic roots. See, if you want that some person or people listen to you, then you should speak very effectively and very strongly. Your opinions are mattered when you are able to speak it very effectively. So effective speaking is very important. See, the sound of voice or your dialect or your accent can tell you from which part of the country you belong, or what does a particular, or what is the emotional status of a particular person is. If a particular person is happy, when he speaks, then it shows that a particular person is happy. But when he said, he will not speak in that tone. So sound of your voice or the way you speak speaks a lot about your personality, about your persona. So this is what your effective speaking is. Its importance is very there in today's world. Okay? Effective speaking means being able to say what you want to say in such a way that it is heard and acted upon. Here, powerful or effective speaking relates to being able to talk in a public context with self-belief and clarity, influencing listeners and reflecting your persona at the same time. So what I'm saying here, effective speaking means that you are able to talk in a public context with self-belief and clarity and keeping your ideas, your opinions very strongly, and influencing the listeners and also reflecting your personality and persona at the same time. Okay, so effective speaking is very important, whether it is a case of a conference, whether it is a case of an interview, or whether you are giving a public speech. One should have a good command over your speaking. So this is what the meaning of effective speaking is here. So let us move on to the elements of good speaking. The first element is clear pronunciation. First important prerequisite of effective oral communication or of a good speaking is that the words should be pronounced clearly and correctly. Oral messages are often misunderstood because the speaker does not talk distinctly. Inability to use the jaws freely, to speak with limber tongue and limber lips, and speaking slowly often makes for poor oral transmission. If a person tries to talk as fast as he thinks, his words will run together and get rammed into one another. So when you are speaking, then please pronounce the words clearly. Please don't speak so slowly or so fast, because it will make the speech very boring, or it will make the listener very unable to understand what you are speaking when you are speaking in a very fast mode. So clear pronunciation is a very first important prerequisite of your effective oral communication. Next element is preciseness. See, people take pleasure in the discussion, so the oral verbal exchange tends to be boring from over communication. Preciseness means to keep your discussion or to keep your oral verbal communication to be brief, short. That is the meaning of preciseness here. So it is very important to hold the message as brief as possible without appearing repetitive and overstated. So this was your second element, that is preciseness. Next comes precision. See, precision can make oral communication very effective. For example, instead of saying total these invoices as early as possible, one can say it, could you kindly total these invoices and bring them back to me in half an hour. See, when you were saying total these invoices as early as possible, the particular person might get confused. What is the timing for as early as possible? As early and as possible will be what for that particular person. But when you are stating that please total these invoices within half an hour, then the opposite person is clear in his mind that I have to total these invoices and bring to the person within half an hour. So this is what precision means. To the point. Okay. Next comes appropriate choice of word. Words have different meanings for different people. So it is important to be careful in the choice of words. The speaker, while speaking something, knows what he means and so presumes that his listener also does so, which may be wrong presumption. In oral communication, it is more important to use the terms familiar to the listener rather than the terms that are familiar to the speaker, because you are saying or you are giving the speech or you are saying something to the listener, not to yourself. So always try to use those words which is familiar to the listener, not to the speaker, because you are making that particular person or that particular listener understandable. Okay. Now next comes logical sequence. If the speaker has given a proper thought to his message, he will be able to arrange various ideas contained in it in their logical sequence. Jumbled ideas create confusion. So, while logically arranged ideas make the message forceful. So, your message should be logically sequenced so that it is understandable to the listeners. Next element is conviction. A person communicating orally must have conviction in what he says. Lack of conviction causes lack of confidence and so is not able to impress the receiver with the message. Conviction comes from sincerity of approach and careful thinking and planning. Careful analysis and objective evaluation of the message while formulating, it also promotes the speaker's conviction in it. So, whenever you are speaking, speak with the full conviction. Next element is natural voice. It clearly suggests that some speakers deliberately cultivate an effective style under the impression that it would make them look more sophisticated. But this is not the case. Nothing is farther from the truth, and nothing impresses so much as the natural way of speech. One should not cultivate the other style of speaking. You should always speak in your natural voice. That is more important. See, one of the manuals for office employees in a firm says the most effective speech is that which is correct and at the same time natural and unaffected. Try to tone down an unusual accent and discard all affectations of speech. Try to cultivate a pleasing voice and speak clearly and distinctly. So, keep up your natural voice, not a cultivated one. Last is avoid cliche. See, last is avoiding cliche. It means speakers, when they are grouping for words or when they are trying to find words, often make use of everyday phrases like what I mean, do you follow, isn't it, I see, etc. Such words and phrases interrupt the flow of their speech and impede the quick grasping of meaning. They are used unconsciously, but the speaker should take deliberate pains to exclude them from their speech. So, these were the elements of your good speaking. Now, let us see the types of speaking. In this, first comes your conversation. See, a conversation is communication between multiple people. It is a social skill that is not difficult for most individuals, and we do day-to-day this conversation. Conversation are ideal form of communication in some respects, since they allow people with different views on a topic to learn from each other. While a speech, on the other hand, is an oral presentation by one person directed at a group. For successful conversation, the partners must achieve a workable balance of contribution. Okay? A successful conversation includes mutually interesting connections between the speakers or the things that the speakers know. So this is what your conversation means. The next type is oral presentation. See, a presentation is a speech on a serious topic. Its purpose is to inform, to explain, and to persuade the audience or to present a point of view. Okay? It may introduce a product or explain a process or narrate an experience. It is delivered to a small, knowledgeable audience at a conference or a seminar or a business meeting. It is followed by questions from the audience. So this is what your oral presentation means. The next type is speeches. Speech is an act of speaking or act of expressing or describing thoughts, feelings, or perceptions by the articulation of words. Speech is something spoken and an utterance or vocal communication or conversation. It is also a talk or public address. So this is what a speeches means. Next one is group discussion. See, group discussion as a term itself suggests it's a discussion by and among a group of people. There are many people involved in it. ठीक है. The group have between they may have between 8 to 12 members who express their views freely, frankly, and in a friendly manner on a topic of current and controversial nature. The topic is given on the appointed date, and hence the conversation that follows is a spontaneous chit chat, not a pre-planned one. Here, within a time limit of say 20 to 30 minutes, the abilities of the members of the group are measured in an obtrusive manner by the examiner who does not actively participate in the discussion. So this is what group discussion is. Group discussion is basically done within the group, which comprises of 8 to 12 members. A particular topic is given and for say 1 or 2 minutes is given for the preparation, and the group starts discussing about it, and the whole discussion is actively sensed by the group of examiners, which does not take the participate, but they judge the members who are participating in that discussion. So this is what your group discussion is. The next one is last, and the last type of speaking is dialogue. A dialogue is a conversation between two or more people. It is also a literary form in which two or more parties engage in a discussion. Some employees are introvert and are not interested in a dialogue with anybody. This will hamper the growth of an organization. A dialogue is based on a situation or a circumstance in an organization. So one has to be a good listener in the process of a dialogue. So these were the types of speaking. First one was conversation, then oral presentation, then speeches, group discussion, and the last one is your dialogue. Okay. I hope you all have understand the effective listening and the effective speaking. In the next lecture, we will see the another element of the soft skill. Till then, thank you for watching the video.